So, thanks for being here, everyone. What I'm going to try and do in the next hour is give you a brief insight into the Harmony technology. I mean, it is a brief insight. It literally took me 6 years to get my head around it. It's so different to everything else that we've ever had on this planet that you can't explain it in the normal way that you would explain something new. You know, normally you come across something new and you can say, well, it's like that, but better, or it's one of those in a different colour. You can't do it with the Harmony technology because there is nothing in any way resembling it and never has been. So any question that begins with, is it like, the answer is no. And it has in itself quite an interesting history. It owes its principal application nowadays to serendipity. One of my favourite words, for those that are not that au fait with it, serendipity means to discover something of enormous value while strenuously attempting to do something completely different. And Joachim Wagner, the young German engineer who developed the technology, he was actually trying to make the car engine run better, which he actually did succeed in doing. You see, his being his bonnet as an engineering student was the enormous discrepancy between what he had to learn from the books to get his diploma or his degree and what actually went on in the real world. I mean, for example, it tells you in the books that a petrol engine does not produce any soot. You try putting your finger in the exhaust pipe. What's that black stuff on your finger? It's the soot that, according to the books, doesn't exist. And there are lots and lots of things like that. For example, it's said in conventional wisdom that you can either improve the performance or the emissions or the fuel consumption at the cost of the other two. You can never improve two at the same time. And if you think about trying to improve all three simultaneously, you should be thinking about seeing a psychiatrist. And this is exactly what Joachim set out to do. I mean, according to the principles of Arthur C. Clarke, who laid down the principle how to create a valuable invention. Answer: study what all the experts agree is impossible and then do it. This is what he did do. And not being encumbered with the multi-million-pound research budget of the motor manufacturers, he was compelled to think small and discovered that the smaller he thought, the more effective he became. Until we came to one little thing. Now, I'm not a great artist here, and I do know we've got a motor mechanic in the room, but we will say that this is the cylinder of a car engine, and this is the piston. And this piston goes down here and turns a crankshaft. In principle. Possibly a little more complex than that, but you know, that's as far as I go. Now, up in the top of it, we've got this little thing called a spark plug, which doesn't look like that, but you know, that's the best I can do. And the way in which everything works is that air gets sucked into here, fuel gets sucked into here at a ratio of about 15 to 1, so 15 parts air to 1 part of fuel. And then you get a spark across this gap here, which should be in red, but they haven't given me a red pen. And hey presto, we have an explosion, and the piston goes down. Or up, if the car's built the other way around. Anyway, the problem here is that this spark is so chaotic that it creates a big problem. A problem which, according to conventional wisdom, is not soluble. Because they're saying once everything's in there and the spark goes, that's it, you can't do anything more. There's no way you can affect what's actually going on in here. And Joachim said, I think you can. We'll do two little graphs like this. What normally goes on inside the piston chamber is that because the spark is not coherent, it's chaotic, it produces partial burn. So the first thing you get is an enormous overpressure, which is so short-lived it can't even move the piston, it just rattles it. It's where most of your engine noise comes from. And then you get something that looks like that. So in some areas it burns, then it doesn't, then it does, then it doesn't. So it's quite inefficient and wastes a lot of fuel, and you get rather dirty emissions, including the non-existent soot. And what Joachim discovered is that if you remove the chaos from the spark, you get an ordered burn, and you get something that looks rather like this. You see? This overpressure's gone. And you notice it often very quickly because the engine becomes much quieter. And you get a continuous burn. So this moves the piston much more efficiently. And because you're getting a continuous burn, you're getting a more complete burn, so your exhaust pipes, exhaust gases are much cleaner. So what's he done? He's improved performance, consumption, and emissions all at the same time. He's done the impossible. Wonderful. All he needs now is a motor manufacturer to install it. No, we don't do things like that. If we don't understand it, we don't use it. Even if it works, even if you know how often you show to us that it works, if we don't understand it, we're not going to use it. So that was the state of play in Germany. But in Taiwan, something very different happened. In Taiwan, they said, well, if it works, we'll use it. We're empiricists. We're not interested in the theory. We're only interested in the facts. Do you think it's possibly time to shut the door? Yeah. Ah, better. So, in car tuning, it became a very big business in Taiwan in the early 90s. One very, very interesting thing that happened, I think in 1994, but it was before my time in the involvement with the technology, one traditional Chinese doctor had just had his, I think, a BMW tuned, and was rather amazed with the difference. And he asked, well, how does this technology work? And so they explained to him the principle of quantum ordering. And he, being quite a clever guy, said, wait a minute, all material is made of the same elementary particles, whether it be a machine or an organic system. There's no difference in the elementary particles. So that which works for a machine should work for a biological system. Let's try it. And it does. It did. Unfortunately, shortly after that, three things happened. They had a sort of quite severe depression in Taiwan, economically speaking. The prices which the people who've been selling the Joachim's products in Taiwan were, shall we say, exorbitant. And the partners fell out, and suddenly that was it. All gone. And when I met Joachim in 2001, he was living a very hand-to-mouth existence, and thought he had a good month when he sold 40 devices. Now, the way in which I met him was quite interesting, because one of my patients, I've been a professional healer now for, getting on for 30 years, told me about it. Now, in our profession, we get masses of junk mail every month, nowadays with emails every day, for one so-called miracle device or another, which mostly don't work. They're just, ways of making money for nothing. And occasionally there's one that will do something for certain people for a certain amount of time, but one that does what the manufacturer claims, never heard of, never come across. So as you can well imagine, my degree of enthusiasm for trying yet another one was barely indistinguishable from zero. However, she was very tenacious, and every time we saw each other, her first question was, have you got one? When are you going to get it? You must try it, it's wonderful. And then Joachim moved from North to South Germany, and then one day she came along, I've got Joachim's new address for you, now you can have one. I thought, no, I'm going to get one of these, I'm going to show you it doesn't work, and then we can drop it, yes? So I ordered one, and Joachim, right intuitively, made a 90-mile diversion to deliver it by hand. So, one afternoon it was a knock on my door of my practice, and I wasn't expecting the Inland Revenue, so I opened the door, and there he was, dressed all in white. I'd never ever seen him in white since that day. And he gave me my first device. Well, I knew exactly what I was going to do with it. And this was because in 1981, I had an operation on my spine. A burst disc had been removed, and forever afterwards, it's a weak point. So you stand up carefully, and it takes about half an hour before you can move properly. And it's always a bit stiff and weather sensitive and all this sort of stuff. So I knew exactly what I was going to do. I'm going to stick it on there with a piece of surgical tape as recommended. Nothing's going to happen. End of story. Wonderful. So that's exactly what I did. I stuck it on, and 36 hours later, all the problems are gone. And 12 years later, they're still gone. So this was my first, what have we got here then? With the Harmony technology. Although it wasn't actually called the Harmony technology then, it was called something else. Joachim being an engineer, marketing is very much frowned upon in engineering school. So the way not to sell a product, as we say in marketing, the way not to sell a product is to let the engineer write the advertising copy. He'd given the technology a name, and to be honest, I can never retain that name. I can hold it for about 8 seconds and then it's gone. That's how, shall we say, useful the name was. All I can tell you is it's about this long. And so the first thing we did was to rename the technology. It actually wasn't the first thing we did. The first thing I did was to spend the next 18 months testing it on myself and some volunteer patients. And then I wrote the handbook for health practitioners. And in 2003, we formed a company to market the technology worldwide. And that's when we changed the name to the Harmony technology. And it's proved very successful. through serendipity. That is, Joachim developed it to make car engine runs better, and it makes biological systems run better as well. And this aspect, of course, Joachim had known about since 1994, but had not been able to do anything with it because he'd no personal expertise in that area. And it was only when I came on the scene that we began to move the products into that area. Now, here we need to make something very, very plain. The Harmony technology is in no way, shape or form anything at all resembling a medical device or procedure. It does not exist. It cannot remove, attack, suppress, or whatever, any medical issue, any health issue whatsoever. That's not the way it works. It can't do that. The technology cannot add anything. It cannot remove anything. What it does do, however, is something very, very significant, something which had never been done before. It orders the informational structure of the electron stream. Now, what this means is, shall we say, you see, the human body is not a fixed thing. In fact, your body changes hundreds of times every second. It's just a localized event. And what's actually happening, every second, your body gives off trillions of elementary particles which are returned into free energy, and trillions of elementary particles are coalesced from free energy to form the material of your body. Every hour, your body throws off millions of used up cells and creates millions of new ones. Every organ of your body, without exception, is replaced on a regular program. Varies from organ to organ. So your liver, for example, every 6 weeks you have a completely new liver. Bones can take more than 2 years, but there is no cell in your body right now which was there 3 years ago. So why does it look older? It's an informational problem. Something is perturbing the pure replication of the cells. Now, this is something that, as a side issue, that Professor Lipton and I have been working on for some time. We're getting progress, but we've got things which work, but we've not quite got to where we want to be. According to Professor Lipton, who's one of the world's leading cell biologists, the human body is obviously been designed to be youthfully active for many hundreds of years. So the question is not how do we prevent aging, but why does it happen in the first place? It's not a natural process. Something is artificially creating it. That's a side issue. Now we'll go back to the Harmony technology. You see, the quality of the elementary particles determine the quality of the proteins in which they participate, determines the quality of the cells in which the proteins participate, determines the quality of the organs. You see where we're going? Everything devolves from the quality of the elementary particles. And the quality of the elementary particles is defined by the precision of the frequency and the precision of the position of the electrons which are participating in every atom. Now, I know we've all been taught this picture in school of the atom as a nucleus with these electrons rotating, orbiting around it. There are two things which we were not told. One was known, but we were not told about, and that is that this picture is not to scale. If you do draw an atom to scale in a book, either the nucleus is so small that you can't see it, or the book is so huge you need 4 men to carry it. So for example, if the nucleus of an atom was that big, the electrons would be more than a football field away. 99.99, I think it's 7 nines, but check with Nassim Haramein if you really want to know, percent of an atom is unformed energy, and a tiny fraction of 1% is formed matter. Now, the other thing which we were taught, which isn't true, but they didn't know it then, we were taught that the electrons orbit around the nucleus, which creates a problem, because in Newtonian mechanics it says quite clearly that an object will orbit another object, and the orbit will deteriorate, and that after a preset number of orbits, that thing will crash into the central body. And it never happens with atoms. Why? And there are all sorts of theories. Well, yeah, one of this is the weak force, which was very, very popular for a long time, although nobody could actually find it. You know, there must be this weak force there that's pushing the electrons away again. But what actually turns out is that the atoms do not orbit around the nucleus. What actually happens is that an electron is not a permanent event. It's something which constantly changes its state from a wave to a particle. You know, I have this concept in modern physics of the wavicle. And it's this constant change from a particle to a wave sequentially gives the illusion, just like what do you call it in English? A chain of lights that give the optical illusion of something moving. That's all it was, an optical illusion. The electrons do not orbit around the nucleus, and that's why they never crash into it. However, the identity of the atom is determined by the precision of the electron frequency and the precision of its position relative to the nucleus. And if these get perturbed, and there are masses of things which cause this sort of perturbation, you know, a modern one, or one that's caused us, shall we say, talked about more than it used to be, is electrosmog. It's not a new problem. Tesla had to cope with it at the beginning of the last century. It's just that we've only begun to notice it when we begin sticking it in our ears. But electrosmog is just simply wild scalar energy which perturbs the frequency and position of the electrons. Geopathic stress will do the same. Emotional discharges from other people will do the same. I mean, there are a number of well-known diseases, emphysema, for example, where the sufferer is actually trying to process the emotional discharge from the partner. So if you want to remove emphysema, you don't work with the person suffering it, you work with the person who's discharging his or her emotions onto the sufferer. Well, you know, it's all side issues. But what actually happens is when you bring order to a given system, it will naturally move into optimal function. Now, this is one of the harmony devices. It's the basic device, the harmony evolution. On the business end is this little thing here. Now, this is actually a dielectricum. A dielectricum is an electron mirror. A glass mirror reflects photons. A dielectricum reflects the much smaller electrons. But it's built up in a particular way. It's built up in several layers, and each layer has several hundred coils, non-conductive coils and condensers crystallized into it, and then three-dimensionally cross-connected. And what this gives you is a mirror in which an electron can enter it in any state at all, but can only leave it along its own particular frequency. So it's a set of several million gates, which you can go in one way, any way you like, but you can only go out along your own specific frequency. That brings the electron into a state of high coherence, or high precision of frequency and position, which, of course, does the same to the atom. And as the atom participates in a molecule, the same thing happens to the molecule. It becomes more coherent, more precise. So the proteins or the bits of machinery that come out of the, are created by the molecules are more efficient. They are naturally going towards optimal function. So this is what the technology actually does. It effectively, but not proactively, it effectively removes chaos from any system. And it's this function which causes this tremendously long list of benefits. Not because the harmony technology does it, but because the harmony technology sets one of the preconditions in which it will naturally happen. Ordered informational energy. So, no matter where you use it, whether it be on a machine, whether it be on your plants in your home, whether it be on your fuse box. Your cat, yes.
And the children, calm them down.
Normally, all household pets will go for this. Cows will as well, and horses. Horses like it. I don't think it's ever been tried on an elephant or a hippopotamus, but the chances are they will like it as well. Because everybody likes order because it makes you feel stronger and happier. This is why you get effects like the immune system suddenly goes boom. Not because the technology has done it, but because the ordering of the energy has made so much more vitality available that amongst other things, the natural immunity goes into maximal potency. How do you use it? Very simply, you stick it to your body. In fact, nowadays there are two versions. There's one that you stick on your body, and this one is you stick it on with surgical tape, cloth surgical tape, not a paper surgical tape. And recently, let's give the Harmony pendant, which is exactly the same processor, but as a piece of jewellery. So you would hang this around your neck. And there are no rules for the use of technology. There are suggestions, but there are no rules. So, you know, if you wake up one morning with an irresistible urge to stick your Harmony Evolution under your right ear, do it. The very worst that could happen is nothing. If you've got a device that is not proactive, can't remove anything, can't add anything, it can never cause any damage. What often does happen, however, when you first start using it, your body will go into detoxification top gear. As all the detoxification processes that are being held up for however long it may be, suddenly the body's got the energy to do it. And so, of course, it's going to do it, because detoxification is one of the most important processes in the human body. It's to keep it going. You've got to remove the toxins. Now, these toxins are not toxins per se. These are toxins for the human body, but it's part of the normal planetary recycling system. These toxins for the humans are natural nutrients for a whole host of bacteria which recycle them and make out of them foods for the plants which we eat. And so the cycle keeps going around. But if you hold the toxins in your body, not only can they not get to the denizens of the earth which actually enjoy eating them, it's not going to do you much good either. So we have 5 suggestions. One is the thymus gland. Now, easy to find. You put one finger on the top end of the breastbone or the sternum, not in this little hollow above it, but on the bone itself. Then you put 2 fingers next to it, and behind the 3rd finger is the middle of the thymus gland. And that just goes on there. Incidentally, according to medical theory, the thymus gland stops functioning at about 25 years of age. Nonsense. As with much medical theory, there is no scientific base for that, and a healthy thymus gland will continue for functioning for as long as you decide to keep your body. What happens, however, is because of a habit of suppressing the breath, the thymus gland gets so hot and is under so much pressure that it actually shrinks. And if you start doing things which free this part of the upper chest, so that the thymus gland gets cooled by the air exchange in the upper lungs, and constant gentle massage from the free movement of the rib cage, then it will recover. Lots of ways of doing it. I mean, the most interesting one for me was the discovery that the people who sing the Hare Krishna mantra, which they're supposed to do 324 times a day, after about 6-8 months, they've all got fully functional thymus glands. One way of doing it, kinesiology will do it. There's lots of exercises from Hatha Yoga that will do it.
Go to chanting and Tai Chi practice where you chant, you hum on the different organs, and the vibration of that humming will affect the organs. So it's Tai Chi. So.
Yeah, lots and lots and lots of ways of doing it.
Sound is vibration.
Yeah, and it doesn't matter which one you use, all of them prove that the medical theory is nonsense. So, why is the thymus gland so important? Well, amongst other things, it's the control organ for the entire immune system. It's also the main point of contact between the physical and the emotional body. It's also the one point on the body where you can affect almost all of the meridians. So a very, very useful point for general usage, which is why it's the most popular point and why it makes sense to produce one as a piece of jewellery which you can just hang there. second position to be in is the lower end of the breastbone, where the point of the breastbone goes in the middle of this diamond. And this is about vitality, and about this ring of organs around here as well. Then we have the small at the back. Yeah. This is where the 5 lowest vertebrae are fused together with the 2 wings of the pelvis. It's the most massive part of the human body, responsible for balance, not only mechanical balance, but also emotional balance. So when this organ is fully functional, and it is an organ, the spine and the entire body will be automatically be filled with feelings of certainty and safety, and you go automatically in a straight line through your life. No more going around in circles. Backbone. Backbone in whatever sense of the word. The next point is the Ming Meng, and this is the vertebra behind the navel, the belly button. Here it's about digestion, not just what you eat and drink, but digesting life as a whole and letting go of that which is complete. A thing with which many people have enormous problems, letting go of that which is complete, which is finished. And the reason you do that this is done is because of a learned belief in lack, something which actually cannot exist. Because the structure of this universe is based on abundance. So it is very, very strenuous to create for yourself the illusion of lack. But it is very, very easy to allow the natural abundance. And one of the ways in which you create lack is to hold on to things which are already complete, in the belief that if you let them go, then you will have nothing. Mm-hmm. The truth is, when you let them go, you clear the space for the next thing to reach you. But until you let them go, that space isn't free, and it can't reach you. That's why it's so important.
That's logical.
Mm-hmm. And the fifth one is the fontanelle. This is where the 4 top plates of the skull come together. By a newborn baby, it's an open hole in the skull, not the skin. But, and it's always very easy to find, and that is you put the heel of the palm in the bridge of the nose, not on the eyebrows, but in the bridge of the nose. Lay your hand on, and the tip of the middle finger always comes on the fontanelle. Usually there's a little hollow there. On some skulls there's a little lump. Very occasionally you'll find a skull where there's almost nothing to be felt, but it's always exactly there. And this point is very, very important, because this is the point of connection between material thought and spiritual thought. And if these two are in conflict, your life just goes round and around and around in circles. Bring them into the natural balance by removing the chaos, and things get much better very quickly. In fact, the most common testimonial that we get from the use of the Harmony technology comes at around 4 months usage. And that is, I can think much more effectively. I can think much more clearly. All that's happened is so much chaos has been removed from the body, and you don't even have to do that, it happens anyway, that the thought processes become much more coherent. A natural balance returns to thought. That's all that's happened. That's why this perception, I can think better, I can think more effectively. Because there's much less chaos causing you to be ineffective. So it's nothing proactive, it's something that shouldn't be there has gone. How has it gone? If the technology isn't removing it, how has it gone? Fortunately, I have some photographs showing this. Here we must refer to a gentleman by the name of Professor Masaru Emoto, which many people will have heard of. He's a Japanese physicist who's been working with water for 40 odd years or so now. And his first book was called, I think, Messages from Water. And he developed a technique of photographing the crystals which water forms at the point of freezing. And he can identify the informational quality of that water sample by the quality and complexity of the crystal which is formed. So he tested many different waters, from rivers, from sewers, from natural springs, from tap water or city water as it's called in some countries, and was able to show that water from a particular source almost always had the same sort of form at the point of freezing. And this was due to the informational quality of the water. Now, he must point out just how important this is. Water is not just H2O, it's much more than that. Water is actually the principal information carrier for this planet. And city water, or tap water, is rarely more than 4% water in the informational structure. It might be 98.99% chemically water, but it's rarely more than 4% informationally water. And the rest is pressure and turbulence from the pipework. It's geopathic stress from pipework, which is laid without relation to geological structures. It's electrosmog from cables which are laid in the same canals. Sometimes it's even sewage information when the sewage pipes are laid too close to the freshwater pipes. You've got all this junk information in the water. Professor Emoto has a European laboratory in Liechtenstein, and in 2005 we went there. Now, you can have anything tested there that you like as long as it's got something to do with water. And you pay then it was 600 euros, I don't know what it is now. And a few weeks later, you get the photographs. Now, you're not allowed to be there, and you're not allowed to know when your test is being carried out, so that you can't influence it. And what they do is they take a sample of water directly from the tap or the pipework, city water. They put it through a reverse osmosis filter so that it's chemically empty, and then that water sample is divided. One half is immediately frozen and photographed. The other half is treated with your device according to your usage instructions, and then it is frozen and photographed. So this is what Liechtenstein city water or the tap water looks like. No crystal, it's just a clump. This is what the same water looks like 5 seconds later. Now, which water do you want to drink? What's actually happened? Has the harmony evolution done something? No, it can't. What's happened is that the water information, which is in the sense of what's in the physical structure, the water information has become so coherent that it's thrown off all the junk. So here you have masses of junk information, and here you just have pure water information. This is of tremendous importance because this water can produce blood that looks like this. Now, this is an extreme case, but what's actually happened is that the red blood cells are so clumped together that there is no way that they can get into the capillaries. It's a different test procedure, so you can't actually see it here, but also the water molecule cluster size is so large that the water itself can't get into the capillaries. The effect of this is that the cells are both asphyxiated and poisoned because toxins, metabolic waste are not being transported to the discharge organs, but they're also starving because neither nutrients nor oxygen is being transported to the cells. This man was actually sent home by the medicos to die. He could actually take 3 steps without pausing for breath, in constant pain. And instead of dying, he went to a therapist in Berlin who happened to know about the Harmony technology. And this is what his blood looks like after it. Now, there's actually 6 weeks between these 2 photos. Not because it would take 6 weeks to go from here to here. You begin to see a change in 10 minutes. It would take a few hours for it to work through the entire body, and maybe a few days before every cell starts getting the treatment it needs. The reason why there are 6 weeks between these 2 photos is here, sent home to die, here, back at work. It's not just changed his blood, it's changed his whole life.
Mm-hmm. But what did the therapist do with him?
She gave him one of those.
Just...
And he wore it 24 hours a day
Uh-huh.
on his thymus gland.
That's all?
That's all he did, and that's all that's necessary. And all that happened is his entire body water changed from junk to vital water. And blood is 93% water. And if the water's vital, then you get a healthy cell structure, which means that the blood functions, which means that the cells receive nutrients, which means that metabolic wastes get discharged instead of stored. It also means that a lot of so-called incurable and chronic diseases disappear. Things like arthritis and rheumatism and osteoporosis and a very, very long list. They're all different variations on the same theme. Because the blood is not able to transport nutrients and waste properly, they get stored instead of discharged. So arthritis is metabolic waste stored in the joints. Rheumatism in the muscle tissues. Osteoporosis in the bones. Arteriosclerosis in the blood vessels. The whole list goes on. But as soon as your blood is fully functional, your blood will naturally take up these deposits and they will be ejected from the body via the kidneys, via the large intestine, via the sweat. They will be naturally removed from your body. The Harmony technology hasn't done it. All that's happened is that your body has been enabled to carry out this process that it would carry out anyway if it just had the prerequisites to do it. It's that simple and that complex and that beautiful. So, one very important thing when we're speaking about the arthritis group of illnesses, which is, I think there are about 40 of them, which are all, as I say, they're just light variations on the same theme. Blood, which isn't transport capable. And not only will the stored metabolic wastes be ejected, because the blood is fully functional, nutrients will be properly transported to the damaged parts of the body, and natural regeneration takes place. So, for example, with arthritis, it's normal to be pain-free within 6 weeks. It's normal for regeneration to take place over the following 18 months. Now, that is normal. There's nothing unusual about that at all. It's something that the body does naturally, as long as it's got the prerequisites that it needs to do so. And as I say, it works in 95% of cases. And if it doesn't work for you, it means that your diet or your water is so acidic that even with your blood in this state, it can't transport the acidic metabolic waste. So you need to make some changes in your diet. But as I say, this alone works for 95% of people. One of the many, many good reasons why there is a 6 months right of return. You can send it back within 16 months for a 100% refund. Within 6 months, sorry, for a 100% refund. And the reason for the 6 months is that for some people it works instantly. I mean, literally instantly. For some people, their family and friends notice the changes before they themselves notice. And everything possible in between. But we know that within, well, you're actually usually within 3 months, everybody notices changes. All the same, 6 months right of return. There's also a 10-year function guarantee, not because it stops working after 10 years, but because in some countries there is a 10-year limit on a manufacturer guaranteeing their product. It's not our choice, but because that exists in some countries, we just decided to make it a blanket thing worldwide, 10-year function guarantee. That said, we don't know how long these things will last. Theory says your grandchildren could inherit it and use it. Practice is the first prototypes, fully functional prototypes, which were developed in September 1989, they're still functioning 100%. So it tells you something. In fact, we've never ever had a product returned under a function guarantee. We get about, under the satisfaction guarantee, we get about 5-6 pieces a month back. But that's it. That's a very small proportion of the turnover, so it's not something we need to make any song and dance about. It's just, it's very, very good, but it's not for everybody. So if it's not for you, you send it back and we give you your money back. End of story. So that's the main device, the one which is generally used for a whole host of applications, which you can read all about on the website, harmonyunited.com. But there are a number of other products which came a little bit later. One is, you've already seen, the Harmony Mini. The prime purpose of this is to prevent electrosmog in mobile cell phones, cordless phones, prevent electrosmog being generated. Now, we know there are a plethora of devices which attempt to fight the electrosmog or to neutralize the electrosmog once it's already been generated, but we go a different way. We remove the cause of the electrosmog. And the cause of electrosmog is the electricity which you put from the mains into the battery. That electricity is very chaotic. And as much as 28% of it is so chaotic that the phone can't use it. All it can do in self-defense is to throw that off as wild electron bundles, and that's what we call electrosmog. If, however, you put a Harmony Mini on the battery as close as possible to the plus pole, then the electricity is ordered, which means that the phone can use virtually 100% of it. Has the nice side effect that the charging the battery lasts a bit longer, and often you can get reception where other people can't. But there is no electrosmog created. We've removed the cause. We've removed the chaos from the electricity. Back in 2006, a doctor in Munich in Germany worked out another use for the Harmony Mini. As you realise, a doctor walking from one patient to another the whole day, he covers a few kilometres, a few miles each day and every day. And his normal thing at the end of the day, his feet were so sore that all he could do was put them up. He couldn't, his profession was a doctor, but his love was his apple trees, and he couldn't get to them other than at weekends because his feet were so sore. So he did a little experiment. He put a Harmony Mini in the heel of each shoe. Result, his feet were no longer tired and sore at the end of the day. Then he tried this on some of his patients, especially those who stood for long times. People who work in shops, for example. Same effect. The feet were no longer tired and painful. Since then, we've discovered a few other things. So that's for people who stand in one place or just take small amount of movement. We discovered a little bit later that if you put it behind the place where the large toe and the second toe meet, that's a beautiful place for a long distance runner or a postman. Anybody who does that sort of work. The long distance runners are sportsmen. They can run longer and faster. The sports teams who use it, they go very rapidly up in the league table. All wonderful stuff. And then the third point is for people who lift heavy weights but don't actually move about very much. Like a bricklayer, for example, would be lifting hods of bricks, but he wouldn't move very far. And that's here at the kidney point. Now, what is actually happening here, the Harmony Mini is actually in itself too small to have any of the effects that one would expect from the evolution. But using them as a pair in the shoes, it brings the structure of the skeleton into optimal balance. And that is what brings these effects. So if you're a bricklayer or anybody working at a building site, it would actually pay an employer to have these put into the boots of all these employees because you get much less injuries. Much less. That's what's going on. Balance. Which, as you know from Tai Chi and Qi Gong, it's balance. Yeah.
And breath and energy and air and oxygen and, stilling and it's bringing harmony and stillness.
Yeah.
To your energy field and to,
Okay. So, just very quickly mentioning a few others. Going back full circle, this is a device which we developed for a German car manufacturer to turn a catastrophe into a functioning car. It's called the Harmony Supercharger, and it does a whole host of things from one central point. You can read all about it on the website, Harmony Automotive. I'm doing this fast now because the camera has only got 10 minutes of room left on it. I want to get it complete before we get there. Then a little later we expanded this principle of the much larger processor doing things from one central point to create the home and office harmonizer, because we know for many years that by placing these on key points in buildings, you can turn a almost unusual building or a so-called sick building into a very happy building within an hour or so, as long as it stays on. But you either need somebody who can see the node points in the energy, or you need a suitcase full of very expensive devices to measure it, which makes it a complicated process and often a quite an expensive process, which usually is difficult to justify financially in a private home. In a business premises, it pays for itself very, very quickly, but that's a different ballgame. So, expanding this principle, we produced the Home and Office Harmonizer, a device which anyone can install within 5 minutes, because there are only two possible places for it. One is over the middle of the main entrance door on the inside, and the other one is on the outside of the door to the fuse box, electrical fuse box. One or the other will do the trick. And some houses it works better one way, some the other way, but it doesn't take you long to find out which. Then, 2009, or was it 2010, came a big breakthrough. Almost, if you like, a quantum leap in the technology, which was so dramatic, we kept it under wraps for a whole year before we released it. And it's called the Harmony Omega. It does everything that this does, plus it has a very significant effect in the area of consciousness. The omegas will link with each other to produce a field effect if they're close enough together. And this is an Omega 2, which was first released at the end of 2012. And just pass that around. Please either take it by the chain or on the edges. Don't hold it at the front and the back.
So the working part is within...
Yeah, it's within the sandwich. Mm-hmm.
So you'd put that on you'd hang it on the wall somewhere?
Well, you could. That's one of the options. It's, as I say, when a technology is right, the usage instructions is one line. And with the Harmony Omega, the usage instructions are anywhere vertical. You've got it upside down, the chain is supposed to be at the top. So you can either hang it, you can stand it on a shelf, you can take the chain off and screw it to the wall, and it always works. And if somebody would like to hold it up for the cameras against the light so that the camera could see what's inside there. This is the most potent device. I'll put it upright. That's on the side, yeah.
I
can't see it that way because of the light. If I do it that way, you can see it.
Well, sideways, but we need it right way up.
I know it needs to be that way.
Yeah. Yeah. But that's it. That is the Harmony technology. That's a brief introduction to what it's all about. You can read a lot more about it on the website, and you'll find of course, the prices and whatnot in the Harmony shop on the website.
And where is this used?
In a home, in a factory, in an office block,
Yeah.
wherever it's needed.
So if you have
As
a
it-
sick building, you put it in, a bit like the other.
Yeah, as I say, it's for most homes it's overkill.
Yes.
That for most homes that is
Is
perfectly
adequate.
adequate.
Yeah.
But for problem homes or very large buildings
Mm.
or therapy practices,
Yes.
this is extremely useful because the patients will get better much faster, which enhances your reputation, which brings you more patients. So it pays for itself. So, yeah.
A question.
Yeah.
I thought about a house. It's an example.
Mm.
A house in which, for example, a person was murdered.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So we can put this thing inside, and it will be better. This worse. And it
Usually,
will go
yes.
away.
Usually, yes. It will cause the emotional attachment from the murder in which is infiltrated the building structure. It will release that, and it will just evaporate. That's the typical experience. Yeah.
Okay.
Any more questions?
And there's a small therapist one as well that's not sealed, isn't there?
No.
No, one of these, I thought one of the small ones. I saw it on your website and it said it was a therapist.
Oh, I see what you mean. Yeah, the mini for therapists, which is not self-adhesive.
Yes.
It's used by acupuncturists and similar. It goes on the trigger points during a therapy session.
So to use that.
Yeah, yeah.
Right.
Mhm. Okay, thanks very, very much for
Yeah,
your
thank
time,
you.
and I hope you have lots of enjoyment studying the website.
Thanks very
And
much.
if you have any questions, just drop us a line. There's a contact form on the website itself.
Yeah,
Thank you.
Thank you so much.